Imagine spending weeks nurturing tiny green sprouts, only to watch them completely wither away because of one single spoonful of a so-called miracle cure from the internet. Today we are talking about tomato seedlings and those highly viral hacks involving baking soda, yeast, and turmeric. I promise you by the end of this video, you will look at your kitchen pantry in a completely different way. But let me ask you this first. Are these home remedies the ultimate secret to a disease-free garden, or are they just a fast track to destroying your precious vegetables? Let me know right now in the comments. Have you ever poured a yeast mixture on your plants? Every spring, millions of people look for cheap, natural ways to protect their gardens. Tomatoes are especially prone to fungal diseases, and commercial fertilizers can be incredibly expensive. Because of this, the internet has become flooded with one-spoon miracle hacks. People desperately want organic solutions. However, vegetable seedlings are exactly like human babies. Their young roots are incredibly sensitive and fragile. A tiny mistake in the chemical balance of the soil can be instantly fatal. Today we are going back to basic biology. We need to look at the actual chemistry of these common household items and uncover what really happens beneath the dirt when you use them. Everyone wants a fast and easy fix for their vegetable garden. You scroll through social media and see a bright, flashy video. A cheerful voice tells you that just one single spoon of a household ingredient will guarantee giant, juicy tomatoes that never get sick. It sounds absolutely perfect. We all want to avoid harsh chemicals, save money, and have the best harvest in our neighborhood. This strong desire makes us incredibly vulnerable to completely fake gardening myths. When we see a trick involving baking soda or yeast, our brain instantly assumes it is safe because we use these exact items in our human food every single day. If it is safe for us to eat, it must be completely harmless for a tiny green plant, right? Well, that specific logic is exactly where the disaster begins. Plant biology is vastly different from human digestion. A tomato seedling does not process food the way you and I do. It relies on a very delicate balance of microscopic fungi, good bacteria, and exact moisture levels in the dirt. Dropping a highly concentrated dose of a kitchen ingredient into a small pot is exactly like dropping a chemical bomb on a microscopic city. The intention is pure, but the execution can be a complete nightmare for the young plant roots. Imagine you are a tiny, fragile root trying to absorb pure water, and suddenly you are drowned in a harsh alkaline storm. It is a massive shock to the system that many young vegetables simply cannot survive. Let us start with the most famous culprit of them all, which is baking soda. The internet absolutely loves to claim that mixing a spoonful of baking soda into water will cure fungal diseases and keep your tomatoes perfectly healthy. The basic theory is that fungi cannot survive in a highly alkaline environment. While it is scientifically true that high alkalinity stops fungus, there is a massive, glaring problem with this method. Baking soda is pure sodium bicarbonate. Please notice the word sodium. Sodium is essentially salt. When you pour this mixture onto the soil of your delicate vegetable seedlings, you are actively salting the earth. Historically, salting the earth was a brutal military tactic used to destroy enemy farm fields so nothing would ever grow there again. Why in the world would you do that to your own beloved tomatoes? The sodium builds up in the potting mix incredibly fast. It burns the tender root hairs, instantly stopping the plant from absorbing any fresh water or necessary nutrients. Picture a person stranded in the hot desert, trying to drink from a bottle of salty ocean water. That is exactly what your tomato plant feels like when you feed it baking soda. It dehydrates from the inside out. Within a few days, you will see the edges of the leaves turn brown, crisp up, and eventually fall off. You thought you were preventing a disease, but you actually poisoned the plant with an overdose of salt. Now, some seasoned gardeners might try to argue with me here. They might loudly say that baking soda is meant to be sprayed directly on the leaves and never poured into the soil. Let us carefully address that specific method right now. Spraying a mild sodium bicarbonate solution on leaves can theoretically create an alkaline surface where fungal spores struggle to germinate. However, the margin for error is incredibly thin. If your homemade mixture is just a tiny bit too strong, the sodium will burn the green foliage just as badly as it burns the underground roots. The beautiful leaves will quickly develop dark scorched spots that look suspiciously like the exact fungal disease you were desperately trying to prevent. Furthermore, a baking soda spray washes away entirely with the very first rain shower or heavy morning dew. It offers absolutely zero long-term protection for your vegetables. Instead of relying on a risky kitchen powder, it is much safer to ensure your tomato seedlings have proper airflow. Fungal diseases thrive in damp, stagnant air. Simply space your pots out so the wind can easily breeze through them. Water the soil directly at the base of the plant, keeping the upper leaves completely dry. Good basic gardening practices will always outsmart a dangerous viral internet hack. Trusting a spoon of baking soda to save your garden is like using a heavy sledgehammer to swat a tiny fly. You might eventually hit the fly, but you will definitely destroy the entire table in the process. Next up on the list of viral gardening hacks is common baker's yeast. The internet wildly promises that feeding your tomatoes a fermented yeast mixture will act as a superpowered fertilizer, making them grow twice as fast. People mix yeast with warm water and white sugar, let it bubble up, and proudly pour it over their vegetable seedlings. The plants often do look a bit greener a few days later, which strongly convinces people that the magic hack actually works. But here's the fascinating and hidden truth about yeast. Yeast is just a living fungus. It does not contain the necessary nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium that green plants actually use for real food. So why do the tomatoes sometimes look better at first? Because the hungry yeast hits the wet soil and immediately starts consuming the organic matter and natural sugars already present in the dirt. As the millions of yeast organisms rapidly multiply and then quickly die off, their decomposing microscopic bodies release a tiny, temporary burst of basic nutrients. You are not actually feeding the plant at all. You are feeding the yeast, and the plant is just barely surviving on the tiny leftovers. It is a completely unsustainable biological cycle. Think of it exactly like a human drinking a massive, sugary energy drink. You get a huge spike of hyper-energy for one single hour, followed by a terrible, exhausting crash. That is exactly what yeast does to your soil ecosystem. The inevitable crash that follows a heavy yeast treatment is where the real danger lies for your vegetable seedlings. When you add active yeast and sweet sugar to your indoor potting soil, you completely disrupt the natural, delicate balance of the healthy microbiome. The yeast aggressively competes with the beneficial natural bacteria that your tomato plants actually need to survive and grow strong. Even worse, the sweet fermenting smell of the bubbling yeast mixture acts exactly like a loud dinner bell for annoying pests. Fungus gnats, tiny ants, and common fruit flies absolutely love the smell of fermenting sugar and active yeast. Within just 1 week, your peaceful indoor seedling station can become completely infested with clouds of tiny flying insects. These annoying pests immediately lay their eggs in the damp soil, and their hungry larvae will happily munch on the tender, vital roots of your young tomatoes. What started as an innocent attempt to naturally boost plant growth quickly turns into a raging, expensive pest control nightmare. If you truly want to boost the microbial life in your soil, you should use proper organic compost or a high-quality, balanced worm-casting tea. These natural, trusted products are specifically designed to support plant roots safely, without inviting a massive swarm of hungry bugs right into your home. Please leave the baker's yeast in the kitchen where it belongs, perfectly reserved for making delicious bread. Finally, we arrive at the golden spice of the hour, which is turmeric. This bright yellow powder has completely taken the human health and wellness world by storm over the last few years. Because it has well-documented anti-inflammatory and antibacterial properties for humans, the internet collectively decided it must be a magical miracle cure for sick plants too. You will easily find endless video tutorials loudly telling you to sprinkle raw turmeric powder directly on the dirt or mix it into a thick paste for damaged green stems. The popular idea is that turmeric will magically heal open wounds and stop bacterial infections in tomato seedlings. Let us set the record straight right now. Turmeric does contain a compound called curcumin, which is mildly antimicrobial. However, in its raw, dry powder form, straight from your kitchen spice rack, it is virtually useless to a living plant. Curcumin is not water-soluble in a way that tiny plant roots can actually absorb. Sprinkling dry turmeric powder on top of your potting soil does absolutely nothing to fight off a serious soil-borne fungal infection. It literally just sits there, slowly turning the top layer of your dirt a very funny shade of bright yellow. It is the exact equivalent of taping a dry vitamin pill to your arm and expecting it to instantly cure a massive headache. The plant simply cannot process or utilize the kitchen spice in that format. While sprinkling turmeric powder loosely on the soil might seem completely harmless at first glance, it can actually cause serious physical issues for young vegetable seedlings. When a thick layer of fine, powdery spice gets wet from watering, it can easily form a solid, tough crust on the top surface of the soil. This yellow crust slowly hardens as it dries out in the warm sun. Once that solid physical barrier is formed, it completely prevents fresh oxygen from reaching the deep root zone. Tomato roots desperately need to breathe air to survive. If the top soil surface is totally sealed off by a solid paste of kitchen spices, the roots silently begin to suffocate beneath the dirt. Furthermore, this heavy crust heavily traps excess moisture underneath it, creating the absolute perfect damp, dark environment for the very fungal diseases you were trying to prevent in the first place. You literally end up actively encouraging deadly root rot. Instead of raiding your kitchen spice cabinet, the absolute best way to handle a slightly damaged seedling stem is to simply keep it dry and let the strong plant heal itself naturally with proper fresh airflow. If a real disease is truly setting in, you need a targeted, scientifically proven horticultural treatment, not a random curry ingredient. Real gardening is solidly built on actual biology and chemistry, not on hopeful kitchen witchcraft. So, if baking soda burns the delicate roots, yeast heavily attracts flying pests, and turmeric suffocates the entire soil surface, how should you actually feed your young tomato seedlings? The grand secret to highly successful vegetable gardening is incredibly boring, but it works exactly 100% of the time. Young, tiny seedlings do not need a magical spoonful of absolutely anything. For the first 2 to 3 weeks of their young lives, they get all the deep nutrition they require directly from the seed itself. Once they finally grow their first true set of green leaves, they simply need a very mild, perfectly balanced, and highly water-soluble fertilizer that is specifically formulated for vegetables. You should carefully dilute this liquid fertilizer to just 1/4 of the officially recommended strength. Young roots are highly sensitive to strong chemical salts, even the safe ones found in good commercial fertilizers. Slow and steady always wins the long race. Just give them plenty of strong, direct sunlight. Keep the soil slightly moist but never dripping wet, and ensure constant good air circulation. That is the entire boring secret. Healthy, massive tomatoes are grown through calm consistency and patience, not through sudden shock treatments of random household pantry items. By simply ignoring the viral internet myths, you will save yourself a massive amount of stress. The biggest plot twist in modern home gardening is that the internet's absolute favorite shortcuts are often the exact things utterly destroying your summer harvest. We have finally uncovered that baking soda is just a dangerous salt trap. Yeast is a terrible pest magnet, and turmeric is literally nothing but a suffocating yellow crust. Realizing this simple truth saves your precious seedlings from a highly toxic death, and it saves you from endless, expensive frustration. Thank you so much for watching and actively uncovering the scientific truth with me today. If this video truly saved your tomatoes from a kitchen disaster, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more honest tips, and kindly share this with a friend who loves gardening. Now, I want to hear from you. What is the absolute craziest gardening hack you have ever seen on the internet? And did you actually try it yourself? Drop your amazing story in the comments below.